Music theory with Microsoft Excel. Distance names versus interval names, creating a better naming system focusing in on the major modes, that being the Ionian mode, the Lydian mode, the Mixolydian mode. So get ready and some coffee, because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin', and you need Microsoft Excel to excel at rocking, because that's the Excel part of the equation. We are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay, because we basically built this from a blank worksheet, but started in a prior presentation. So if you want to build this entire worksheet from a blank sheet, you could begin back there, or just construct the tables we're building this time as we go. If you do have access to this workbook though, there's 4 tabs down below. Fretboard, example, practice, blank. The fretboard tab having a simulated fretboard, we will refer back to the example tab, in essence, the answer key. Practice tab has pre-formatted cells, so you can practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. But if you don't have any of that, that's okay, because we'll be working in the blank tab, where we built our worksheet from scratch using a blank worksheet, and we'll continue building in the blank part of the worksheet, this time practicing both our Excel skills and music skills at the same time. Let's go to the fretboard tab to get an idea of what we will be doing, noting that we're looking at distance measurements, and the current naming convention is throwing us off a bit from using the optimal kind of visualization of the fretboard. So what is that visualization? From analogy, we're going to say the fretboard is the map of the territory, like the globe. There are 7 continents, destination locations on the fretboard. There's going to be 12 actual locations, but the other 5 locations are in the oceans. We go through them to get to the destination locations. If we have a vantage point from space, which is like our head over the guitar, this being the top of the guitar, the low or heavy E string, our head is over the top of the guitar, we can imagine it rotating to the right like the world spinning around on its axis, and we're going to name 12 different degrees of rotation, those being the note names, helping us to name where the continents are. So if I say that we're in the key of the C major, that's going to say there's that continent 1, and all of the other continents will be in position around it. If I say that we're in C sharp, then it would move up here. The whole system would move to the right. Therefore, it's not optimal to memorize all the notes on the fretboard, although that's a useful exercise. The best thing to do is to then memorize the absolute positions, which from a Nashville number system would be the numbers 1 through 7, which are actually just simply the modes, the Ionian, the Phrygian, the Lydian, the Mixolydian, and so on and so forth. Problems come up with the naming conventions, however, because the naming conventions for distances, this time we're talking intervals, force us to go back and change the names of the continents to a different name. So anytime I measure something from, for example, this 5, the Mixolydian node, our current naming convention forces us to see that as the 1. So if I go up to here, that would be we'd have to use scale degrees instead of distance, and that would be a third, right? So it's going to be a third, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 notes away, and that would be a major third under the current scale degree convention. Now, what's the problem? The scale degree is forcing me to see that node as the 1, and we're not properly measuring distance because I'm including this number in the distance measurement. There's 2 distances that should be here. Either I'm measuring in the 7 continents, I went 2 continents up, 2 modal whole steps up, or 2 modal half steps up, or I measure including the continents and the oceans 1, 2, 3, 4 notes up. All right, so let's view this analogy over here in our example. And I'm going to continue on with our example of the ocean. So if we were to look at fret 5 on our fretboard, we might know this shape as kind of like the rock and roll shape. So you go in a pentatonic format, or if you add the 7 notes, many people call this shape number 1, or you might call it from a caged system a G shape for a C major, G shape. And we can imagine then the continents, here's North America, Europe, Asia, South America, Africa, Australia, and then Antarctica. And then the oceans are in between. So note that I can measure distances just by going around the circle here. We're going to imagine that these continents actually make a circle instead of being able to go between or through the middle of the circle, right? So we have to go around the circle, and we can either include the oceans or exclude the oceans. So if I map it out this way, I know it's an imperfect kind of analogy, but I think it's an effective one nonetheless. So we're going to say, all right, this time I'm going to put the Asia on top. And again, this is not a ranking system of the countries, so don't try to get competitive on the ranking system here. We're just saying that if I put it around this way, then we can say the continents, there's going to be 7 continents. So we're going to name them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can measure that then by distance of the continents, or we can include the oceans as we go around the block, of which there's going to be 5 in our example here to give us 12 different steps. So that's going to be the case for any key. Any key we're in Western music is going to have then the 7 notes in them. We could bring it down to 5 or do something weird, but those are still coming out from the 7 notes in a way. So we could talk about pentatonic scales later, but we're going to have the 7 steps and then the 5 basically pass through steps that we're going to be including. Now, that means that when we actually measure distance, what I would like to do is then say, I'm going to measure how far we're going from any point. So if we're starting on this 2 right here, and I'm going to the 4, then I could say, hey, look, what are you doing? I'm going from 2 to 4. I would call that a modal range, naming the 2 sides of the range that I'm going. It's a 2-4 modal range. How far is the 2-4 modal range? Well, then we can basically measure distance from the 2. It's going to be what I would call 2 modal half steps up. It's 2 continents up. Or from a total distance standpoint, including the oceans, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 actual steps up, right? It's going to be 3 total steps up. But if I just count the destination locations, it's going to be 2 steps up. Now note the current problem. The problem with the current system is it forces us to call this the 1, and then you're not really looking at distance. Now you're saying this is the 3rd if that is the 1. So our distance terminology is wonky. It's off by 1 because they are using a scale degree system. Now you might not be able to get away from that system because you need to communicate on some level with it. But even if you're using those terms, you want to note that you're talking about, in essence, distance, right? The other problem is that all of these terms are based on the major scale, and they don't give us the context of the other nodes that we're on. In other words, if I'm measuring from node number 2 to node number 4, I should not be using the measurement standards from node number 1 per se. Because I don't need to, right? I could just say from that node, it's this many nodal whole steps, and it's this many actual half steps, this many nodal half steps, this many actual half steps. That would give us more context within basically the playing of a song. And so let me continue with our project over here then. So what we did last time is we listed out the 12 notes. We listed out the musical alphabet. We said we're going to pick 7 of them. We're going to stick with the major key because it gives us a nice check figure. So now we have the notes that are the 7 collection of notes for the major key and all related modes, all related diatonic modes. But the same system works if I started from any other of the 12 perspectives, right? It would all be the same. Everything would just simply shift up. And then normally we name the intervals based off of the major key. So whether it's major or minor, so the majors and the perfects are in the major key, and then anything that's not major or perfect becomes a minor, even if it's not necessarily in the main minor keys, such as a minor second. So that is okay, but it would be better to have more context. So we said, and I'd rather name it by mode, because if we name it by mode, then we can say the distance from the node that we are on. So we looked at it by mode for the Ionian mode, which is equivalent to the major scale. Now we're going to look at the other major modes and get this idea. And even if you don't use this terminology, I think it'll give you an idea, a better understanding of what these measurements are doing and what they're possibly forcing you to think, or how they're forcing you to think, which might not be optimal for your memorization of the guitar. It'll help you to see that you want to see these terms as distance terms sometimes only. Not if you find yourself having to say, well, this is the one, so I have to measure the distance from that one. Notice how that's pulling your mind out of the context of the song if you're just on a node. And I think that'll be more clear as we go forward. Also note that these are based on scale degrees. Now the scale degree is, in my opinion, I think this is objectively true from an engineer's standpoint of the system. The scale degree system is not correct, right? It should be a measure of distance, not of scale degrees, right? You should be measuring from the node, not making the node 0.1. So that means that all of these things, to me, they're all off by 1. They're all 1 too high. And we'll see how that problem kind of percolates through. So I'm going to use over here, when we look at it by mode, I'm going to bring everything down as though we're measuring from the node we're on without making the node we're on the first point. That means these are all going to be down by 1. All right, so that's going to be the general idea. So let's continue this. I'm going to go to the Y, which is the Lydian. I'm going to call this the modal range. So now we're going to say this is the point that we're measuring from, which is going to be the Lydian, because I'm going to skip the Dorian and the Phrygian for now because those are minor modes. The Lydian will have intervals most similar to the major. Now, this is one of the arguments that people might put in place and say, well, look, I don't want to have 7 different measuring standards. And the idea is, no, you're not having 7 different measuring standards. It's the same measurement, which is either going to be, you can measure in both modal half steps or in the total distance of actual half steps, note half steps. It's just that this is going to be more clear. It's more clear because it's telling you where the point is, the node that you're measuring from. That's going to be the idea. So let's see what it looks like. I'm going to make this black. Let's make it white. And if I was to say it's a modal range, so from a modal range standpoint, I'm going to call it a YY because we haven't traveled anywhere. We just plucked the same location 2 times, holding down the same fret if you're looking at it from a guitar standpoint. If I looked at as a number for the modal range number, it would be 4 because the Lydian is a 4 and we're going to the 4. So we didn't go anywhere 4 to 4. If we then think about it from a distance standpoint then, in other words, instead of labeling the 2 endpoints that we're going to, I'm just going to basically give me the distance because we can go around in a circle. And it would be 0 actual half steps, note half steps, Y, and then 0 modal half steps. Now notice that the 0, 0 is the same as the Ionian, which is a 0, I, 0. Obviously, all of them, if you just pluck the same place twice, is going to have 0 distance basically going forward. So you can see the distance terms are the same. They're completely comparable. The only difference here being that it's telling you the node that you're measuring from. That's the point. And that's obviously, I think, clearly contextually useful. Now, if you don't know the node that you're measuring from, then you could just default to the Ionian mode. But usually when you're in the context of a song, it would be better to say it with regards to the context of the song that you're in. And then, of course, you can compare those intervals just as easily to the Ionian because it's telling you directly the distance terms from that node, both in terms of the note half steps and the modal half steps. So that's the general idea. I'm going to make this black and white. Black, white, let's center it. Let's take these 2 and double click. All right, what if I go to the next one up? Let's first do the ones that are in the same key. So let's say we go to a YX modal range. So the ones that are in key, and then we'll do the ones that are kind of like in the middle. So if we did a YX, now we're going from here to here. I don't need to make that Y the 1 to make it a scale degree to say it's the second. No, it's going to be 1 modal half step forward from a distance terminology. And if I was over here, then so I can name it like this. It's going to be from a modal range standpoint. It's going to be a 4-5, right? It's a 4-5. What's the distance going to be then? It's going to be, if I look at it over here and I'm going from Y to X, and then if I look at it over here, I'm going from Y to X. Notice it's 3 notes away, or I'm sorry, it's 2 notes up, but it's only 1 modal half step up. So what am I going to call it? I'm going to say that's going to be a 2Y, so it's a 2 Lydian first modal half step. So that means it's the first modal half step, which means it would be the second scale degree. But so this number would be the same. 2 is the same. It's a distance of 2 notes up. But I'm going to call it a Lydian, and then I'm going to call it the first scale degree. The first modal range, which would be equivalent to off by 1 scale degree, the second scale degree would be the general idea. Now, if I compare that to the major, then we could say that we had 2 note away major first scale degree, or second, first modal half step, second scale degree. And we have the Ionians, what I'm trying to find here. We have the 2 note away I1. So it's the same distance because, again, you have the same 2 and the 1. It's just that now I'm telling you, look, we're measuring from the Ionian node. I don't care if we're in the Lydian key at this point. Like, I might be building a chord that's an Ionian chord, but I happen to want to know that I'm holding down the Lydian node and I'm going up this distance from that node. I might still want to know the distance there, even though I'm not in the key of Lydian, right? I just want to know the distance from that node for whatever reason. And so this term will give you specifically what you're looking for, because it's going to give you the distance from the node you're on, right? No matter what context it is, that's all you do. Okay, so then we're going to say, let's do this one. We're going to say this is going to be a YX. So now we're going to say we're going to YA, because we want mixed Lydian Aeolian. So mixed Lydian Aeolian, and it's 4, so it's going to be 4 notes away. So let's first do this. It's going to be 4-6. 4-6, mixed Lydian to the Aeolian is the 4 to the 6, and we're going to say that's going to be a 4 note away Y second modal half step, which would be the 3rd scale degree. So in other words, if I'm going from this Y to the A, that's going to be 2 modal half steps up, from the Y node. How many actual notes up are we going? We're going from the Y to the A. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 notes up. So it's a 4 note up Y Lydian second modal half step, which would mean it would be the 3rd scale degree. So you're going to know this as a 4 note away major 3rd, right? Because the Lydian is a major mode from a scale degree standpoint. But really it's a 4 note away Lydian second modal half step, 2 modal half steps up, which if you do the off by 1 thing would mean a 3rd scale degree. All right, I know that's, again, I hope, okay, so let's keep on going. So now we're going to say that we're going to and here's the weird one. We're going YN. So the modal range now, we're going from Y to N here, right? And so that's going to be what, if I name that by the numbers, that's going to be a 4-7, right? And the distance we're going to say is 6. It's going to be 6 notes away. It's 6 notes away, and it's a Lydian. And now we're on the 3rd modal half step, which would be the 4th scale degree, right? So we're going to say, all right, so if I was here, I'm on the Y, the Lydian, on that node, and I'm going up to the Locrian. So it's 1, 2, 3. It's the 3rd modal half step forward, which means if I made that the 1, it would be the 4th scale degree. And if I'm going from Y here to N, how many notes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes forward. So a 6 note away, Y3. Notice that that's not in the Ionian. I can see that this is the one that's different. This is the weird interval. We would call it an augmented 4th from a scale degree standpoint, right? So you can see that's the funny one, but you can see it's natural. It fits in the Lydian. So I would like the system to say it fits in that interval, fits in the Lydian. To call it an augmented 4th means that I'm using distance terms that are related to the major. And there is some consistency with that, but I think it would be easier to say, it would be better to say, hey, look, this is a natural note. I shouldn't have to augment anything if I'm measuring from the Lydian, right? I'm measuring from the Lydian. It fits in the Lydian. I should only have to do something funny, calling something augmented or putting a 0.5 if there's something that's in the ocean, right? Because if you say something's augmented, it looks like it's not in the key, right? So I would think that you would only use something like that if it's something that's in the ocean. That's when you would have to use something like it's augmented. Okay. All right, what about the next one? So now we're going to go Y. We went to N, which is the Locrian. Now we're going around the horn to I, back to the Ionian, which would be a range going from the 4 to the 1. It's because we're going around in the circle. So we're still going directionally upwards, up past the 7 and then back to the 1. What's the distance? This is going to be a 7 note away. So I'm going to say it's a 7 note away, Y, and then it's going to be the 4th modal half step, which means it would be the 5th scale degree. So and I can compare that to the Ionian. So normally we would call that a perfect 4th modal half step or perfect 5th, a 7 note away perfect 5th if you're using normal term, which is up by 1, right? But I can see from the Ionian, it's the same. So I can see that it's parallel to what the Ionian is. I can still compare the distances. It's just that I'm going to say, look, the center point here is the Ionian mode. The center point here is the Lydian mode. The distance is the same in terms of note half steps and modal half steps. Therefore, it's a parallel construction. But it's in a different location within our map of the world, right? It's in a different location. It looks the same shape is in America as compared to Asia or whatever, right? It looks completely parallel, but it's in a different location. It's going off of a different mode. And I don't need to say that it's a different mode if I name everything as though it's based off of the major key. I'd have to say, look, it's going off a different node. You don't have to do that. You could just say, I'm measuring from that node. And then you can count up from it on the guitar, okay, or whatever you're using. All right, let's do another one. Let's say this is a modal range of a YD. So now we're going up from the Ionian to the Dorian. So that would be naming the 2 points of the range. If I gave it a number, that would be a 4 to a 2. So the 4 to the 2, I'm going up around 7 to 2. I'm going clockwise around the clock, not counterclockwise. I'm not going back to 2. I'm going from the node 4 up to the next octave up, however you want to think about it. So we're going to say that's 9 notes away. So I'm going to say that's a 9 note away, and then it's going to be a Y, and this will be the 5th modal half step, which would be the 6th scale degree. So you can see once again that lines up to the Ionian because it's the same distance here. So we're going to say if I'm going from the Lydian and then I'm going to the 2, I'm going up, not back to this 2, I'm going up, then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait a sec, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 modal half steps up, which means it would be the 6th scale degree if I make that the 1. And if I go from here, from the Y to, let's continue this down to the D. Let me say this is going to be, once again, the I. This is going to be the I, and this is going to be the ID, and then this is going to be the IDP, and then we're going to say Y, and then X, and then where's the, hold on a second, That's right. Let's see if that's enough. We might have to keep going down. So I'll make this that, and then let's make these yellow to be consistent. We'll make those yellow. So now we're going from the Y to the D. So that would be 1, I would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 note half steps up. Okay, so then let's do the next one. We're going to say the next one is going to be to the D to the P. So it's going to be a Y, P, Lydian. Whoops, that's not a P. Lydian, where's my cursor? P to the Phrygian. So we're going to say this is going to be a 4 to the 3 distance. So the distance is going to be 11. So it's 11 notes away. And then it's a Y. And then it's going to be the 6th modal half step, which would give us the 7th scale degree. And so we can see that that is, again, the same. So the only one that is different here is when we look at this one, the 6th note away. So that's then from the Ionian. So, okay. So now let's add the ones in the middle. So these are going to be the ones that are, of course, in the ocean. So I'm going to call this a YY plus, meaning it's right after the Y. I didn't get to the next one. I didn't get to the D. I'm on the Y. I didn't get to the X. It's just right after the Y in the ocean. So what am I going to call that? I'm going to say we're going from the point of 4 to 4.5. Anytime I see a 4.5, I'm in the ocean. So distance-wise, this is going to be a 1 note away now. 1 note away, Y, 0.5. So whenever I see a 0.5, once again, I'm in the ocean. So we went from this Y, and we just went up 1. I didn't get to the X, so I'm in the ocean. If I go Y to X, I didn't make it to the X. We went up by 1 and landed in the ocean, right? So we went up by 1, landed in the ocean. Now, of course, if I look at the measurements here versus the Ionian, they're the same. Both those distances, if I go one note away up, which is 0.5 modal half steps up, both of them land us in the ocean, whether we start on the Ionian or the Lydian, with the same set of notes, the same 7 notes. It's just telling us, look, we're in a different focal point. The range is the same. It's still a 1.5, right? It's a 1, whatever the note is, 0.5. The note is different, though. The note is Ionian versus the Lydian. I'm measuring from a different place in the world, all right? So then we're going to say this one is going to be then the YX plus, meaning we're going right after the Mixolydian. What are we going to call that? We're going to say this is going to be the 4 to the 5.5, and this is going to be 3 notes away. So it's going to be a 3 note away Y and then a 1.5. Why is it so that means it's going to be 3 notes away. So if I started on the Y here and went 3 notes up, 1, 2, 3, I land in the ocean. Which means it's not going to be one of the notes that are in our key, which is why when I go from Y, it's going from Y up 1.5 because we haven't quite gotten to the next, to the A. All right, which is the Aeolian. All right, what about this one? This is going to be then this is going to be a YA plus, which would be then 4 to the 6.5, and so that would be my 2 end points. One's in the ocean, the destination's in the ocean. You can see by the 0.5, it's going to be a 5 note away, so it's a 5 note away Y and then 2.5. So if I start on the Y and I go 5 notes up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we land in the ocean. It's right over the A, and if I start on the Y here and I go up 2.5, 1, 2, we're going to be in the middle there after that distance. All right, let's do the next one. This is going to be then a YI plus, which is going to go from the distance of 4 to the right after the Ionian, 1.5. So now we're going to say then that's going to be we have an 8 node away here. It's going to be an 8 node away, y 4.5. So if I start on the y, that's the node, and I go up 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I land in the ocean. And that means if I start on the y here and I go up 4.5, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm right after that node, right? And so we're going to say, all right, then let's say one more. We're going to say this is going to be the yd plus. So now we're going from the location of the 4 node to the 2.5 node, right after the Dorian node. Distance is going to be 10. It's a 10y and then 5.5. So in other words, if I was to start on the Lydian and go up 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I land in the ocean, which is going to be 5.5 up. So if I start on the Lydian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right after the Dorian, D plus. All right, let's make this a different color. I'll make this green. Hopefully I got all of that correct. I would like to try to do one more before we close up here. So let's try that. We're going to say, let's go now to the X modal range. The X modal range, and this is going to be then the number for the modal range, and then this is going to be, I'll just call it X for the for the interval. All right, I'm going to make this black and white. I'm going to make it black and white and center. I'll select these 3, double click to slim it up, make it a little bit wider than that. We're going to need a little bit more room than that, people. All right. I'll try to do this one a little bit more quickly. So now we're going to be on the X node, which is the Mixolydian node. If I don't travel any distance from that node, it's just simply going to be going from X to X. And we named that node from a natural number system 5, so it would be 5 to 5. Distance then is going to be 0 distance from the X node, which is, of course, 0. So it's a 0 node half steps and 0 modal half steps. All right, the next one that's in, we're going to skip and do the ones that are in key again. So we're going to go to the XA. That's going to be Mixolydian to the Aeolian. From a natural number system, that would be 5 to the 6. And then from a distance perspective, we'd be going 2 notes up. And then this is going to be an X, and it's going to be the first modal half step, which would be the second scale degree. And once again, you can see that this one is the same as the Lydian, the same as the Ionian. So this gives us context. It says, hey, look, yeah, it's the exact same distance. It's a 2-1 distance, but it's going from the different mode, a different location on our globe. Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian can all go a distance of a 2-1 distance from it without landing in the ocean. All right. So if I go on over here, we're going to say, okay, if I'm on the Mixolydian, we're going up 1, which would go to the X to the A, 1 modal half step. And it's going to be, if I'm on the X over here, it's going up 2, 1, 2, 2 half steps up. We land on a continent. All right. So then let's do the next one. So let's go up to here, and we're going to say this is going to be the XN. So we're going from the Mixolydian to the Lydian. We call that from a natural number system, the 5 to the 7, to the Locrian, Mixolydian to the Locrian. Distance-wise, this is going to be a 4 node away. Now I'm looking at the same distance here, 4, because I can't see way over here, so I'm just going to say that it's the 4 distance, but this time I'm going from the X node, and it's going to be the second modal half step, which would be the 3rd scale degree. So once again, this distance is the same. Whether I start on different places in the map, Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian, I can go up 4 half steps or 2 modal half steps and still be on a continent, right? So I mean, if I go from Mixolydian over here, if I go from Mixolydian and I go up by 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I land on the continent of Locrian, right? And that means that if I'm on Mixolydian here and I go up 2, second modal half step gets me to the Locrian. All right, let's do the next one. We're going to say, all right, let's do the next one. The range, this time is going to be an XI. So now we're going to the Ionian. So that would be a Nashville number system, 5 to the 1. So I'm going around to 1. I'm not going backwards to 1. I'm thinking about going forwards, at least right now. We could go backwards, but right now I'm thinking about going forwards. Distance then, when we go forwards, would be a 5 note away, X. So I'm using this same 5 here, right? Same 5 here, X, and then it's going to be the third modal half step, which would be the fourth scale degree. Now notice that this one matches the Ionian, but that's the weird one on the Lydian. So the Lydian is the outlier here. This one matches what the baseline that we measured to, the Ionian or the major scale. So if I go 5 notes up from the Mixolydian, I should land on a continent. So if I'm on Mixolydian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wait a sec, not from there, Mixolydian here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I land on the Ionian. And if I go from Mixolydian here, 1, 2, 3, then I'm on the Ionian 3 modal half steps up. All right, so then let's do the next one. So next we're going to go from the Mixolydian to the Dorian. So we went from the Ionian, we're just going in order, the Dorian. So this is going to be from a Nashville number system, the 5 to the 2, and we're going around to 5, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. And so that's going to be then the, what is that going to be? It's a 7 note away, Mixolydian, and then again, you're going around the horn. So you can count on your fingers, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. That's 4 steps up. So it's the fourth modal half step, which means it would be the fifth scale degree. We can see that once again, that here and here, same distance, whether I'm starting, if I'm on the Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian, I can go up 7 note half steps or 4 modal half steps and still land on a continent. I don't have this one right though. It should be an D, right? So let's go up 7 from here. So if I was on the Mixolydian, I go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I land on the Dorian continent, right? We're still in land. We're safe. Mixolydian here. If I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, I land on the Dorian. 4 modal half steps up. All right. So let's do the next one. So now we're going to go from the X to the P, the Phrygian. So from a Nashville number system, this would be 5 to the 3. And the distance is going to be then 9x. So it's a 9 note away, Mixolydian, and then fifth modal half step, which would be the 6th scale degree. So and you can count it up because I'm on 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. Fifth modal half step up, which would be the 6th scale degree. So we're going to say, all right, that's fine. So that means and that's the same on here, the Lydian and the Ionian, we all land on a continent if I go up 9 half steps or 5 modal half steps. So if I'm here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, land on a continent. If I'm here, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. Is that what I said? 5? Yeah, we land on the P, Phrygian. All right, so let's do the next one. Let's round this out. So now we got the one here. This is the strange one, XY. So now we're going from the Nashville number system would be a 5, 4. So the distance then is now a 10 note away, X. It's a 10 note away, X 6th modal half step, which would be the 7th scale degree. And you note this one is the weird one because in Mixolydian, I land on a continent. But if I went that same distance for the Ionian and the Lydian from those points on the map, I'd land in the ocean. So if I go, so it's weird, this one lines up to all the other ones, but if I go 10 steps up here, I still land on a continent. So if I go over here and I say, okay, this is the weird interval from Mixolydian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I still land on a continent. And that continent is the Lydian. If I'm here, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I land on the Lydian. If I made that the 1, it would be the 7th, right? Okay. So then if I go back on over and let's add the ones in the middle now. All right, so these are the ones that are in the ocean. We're in the ocean. I'm going to call it an XX plus, the one right after the X. So that would be going from the Nashville number system 5 to 5.5, the one right after the 5 but doesn't get to the 6 yet. And we're going to say then that's going to be a 1 node away. X for Mixolydian, 0, what, that's not an X. X, and then let's say 0.5. So now we're going 0.5 up. That means we're going to land in the ocean. So if I go 0.5 up or 1 note up from Mixolydian, if I go 1 note up, I land in the ocean. So if I look at it this way, I didn't quite make it here, right, to the Aeolian. I'm in between Mixolydian and Aeolian. I'm in the ocean. Okay. This one, we're going to say this is going to be XA plus. That's going to be going from the Mixolydian to the Aeolian 0.5, just past the Aeolian. So distance-wise, that's going to be a 3 node away Mixolydian 1.5. So that means that if I go up 3 notes, I'm going to land somewhere in the ocean, given the fact that it's 1.5. I'm just going to be right past the Aeolian. So let me do it over here. So we're going to say, now we're going to say we go from the Lydian and we're going up, Mixolydian. What am I doing? I'm getting tired. We're going from here. We're going 1, 2, 3, and you're in the ocean. We didn't quite make it to the Locrian, right? So we're right past the Aeolian. So if I go here, we're going 1, and then we didn't quite make it to the Locrian, 1.5. All right. So we're going to say, all right, what about this one then? We're going to say that this is going to be, once again, XI plus, right after Mixolydian to the Ionian, just after the Ionian, Nashville number system, 5 to 1.5. And so then we're going to say that this is going to be 6 notes away. Mixolydian, did that again. Mixolydian is going to land us in the ocean at 3.5. So if I go 6 notes up, we're going to be just past the 3rd modal half step up. Or so we're going to say then if I go 6 notes up from Mixolydian, we land in the ocean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we land in the ocean just after the Ionian, right? So if I go back on up here, we're going to say we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 3.5 just after the Ionian, not making it to the Dorian yet. All right. So then let's do the next one. So this one is going to be then Mixolydian Dorian plus, meaning we're going from 5 Mixolydian to 2.5 just past the Dorian. This is going to be an 8 note away. If I go 8 notes away from the Mixolydian, I'm going to land on just after the 4.5 modal half step up, meaning I'm in the ocean. So if I go 8 up from the Mixolydian, I'm going to go from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm in the ocean just after the Dorian. So if I look at it this way, I'm looking at the Mixolydian and I go up 4. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd land on the Dorian and I'm just not making it to the next one. I'm right in the middle of the ocean, which isn't good. And then finally, we've got an XY plus, which would be we're going from the Mixolydian 5 to the 4.5, which would mean we're going to an 11 node away Mixolydian 6.5. Now this is interesting because the other two here, of course, the 11 note away works. If I go 11 notes away from the landmass of Ionian or the landmass of Lydian, I land on another continent. But if I go 11 notes away from the Mixolydian, I land in the ocean, right? Let's check it out. So if I go over here and I go 11 notes away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, in the ocean. So I've gone right past the Y here. So if I go from Mixolydian up top here and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that would be good, but I'm just past that up to here, right? So that's going to be the problem. Okay, so that's the general idea. Now, I hope this shows that you get more context to look at it this way. And again, even if you don't use these terms, I hope it lets you realize and see that the scale degree system might be not as transparent to tell you that these are distance terms. Like if you look, and they're kind of off by 1. It's a little bit more difficult, the current system, to see the inverse. It's a little bit more difficult to know the route that you're on, because you have to name it instead of it might as well be in, the name within the context. I'm naming the location and I'm showing you the 2 ways that we can measure it this way. So you can use the current system, but this might be easier to actually write with or figure things out with. And again, it's easy to convert because ChatGPT could take this system, which is completely logical, and make the conversion to the normal scale degree or vice versa very easily within like the context of a song. So we'll continue on with the minor modes next time.